Last Sunday, if you were here, I really featured the Holy Scriptures of the book Illusions. And I just make that as a joke. But Illusions by Richard Bach. And one aspect of the illusion that I didn't touch on, that I really wanted to catch up with today, was the illusion of duality. It's something that we all suffer from. And when we accept duality, in effect, we've created an illusion of being separate from source, from creator, from spirit. So today the talk will address that, because the talk today is titled Oneness. And the outline was submitted by Reverend C.C. Coltrane. Have you heard that name? Sounds familiar to me. She is, well, I'm not sure, Senior Minister at Center for Spiritual Living in Greater Dayton. And for the first time, they also have a source book for the month. I haven't seen this before. Well, last month was Science of Mind. This month, the featured book is Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Pretty interesting. So how else would I start a talk featuring a book by the Dalai Lama, but with a quote from
the Dalai Lama?
You guessed it, Rumi.
Rumi.
Set you up. Sorry. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. And that's Rumi. And Rumi will be back to offer us more in a few minutes. We could sit and meditate for hours about what that means for us. We aren't separate from the ocean. We aren't just a drop of the ocean. Rumi tells us we all are the entire ocean in a drop. When I'm up at Mount Shasta, standing above the water coming out of the sacred mountain, that seems so obvious to me, that that water is one with the ocean. It goes right to the ocean. It's the headwaters of the Sacramento River. And every drop is whole and perfect with the ocean. But it changes. But what does that tell us? What does that mean to us about our nature, our true character, our essence? The science of mind point of view is oneness is the basis of our entire philosophy. The circle is one. It's our entire worldview, our beingness. When we allow oneness to be what we live from, our thoughts, our words, and actions literally contribute to a changed world, an ethical world that works for all life. Oneness is where we all exist. We're all points of light in the greater light that is the universe, the divine spirit, the one. That is true of every human being, every animal, every plant and tree, every rock, every grain of sand. We are as much one with the tree as we are with our own loved ones. We're in relationship with all of it because it's what we are, it's what we always will be, always have been. From a lecture at the University of Oregon, the Dalai Lama taught, we should remain focused on the concept of oneness of humanity and the importance of accepting each other despite what he called secondary differences, such as religion, race, ethnicity. He went on to say, if I look at you as another human being, I easily mix with you. then there's no possibility of loneliness. We must act according to reality, not based on perception. In order to know the reality, our perception must be holistic. If our mind is biased, then we cannot see. It is very important to teach people oneness of humanity, and in that way develop a sense of global responsibility. Now, this concept of oneness is not something created by Dr. Holmes in our teaching. It's everywhere. It's in Buddhism, Druidry, Hinduism, Kabbalism, naturalism, paganism, and more. So it's fair to say we don't have a monopoly on this. It's new thought, but it's ancient wisdom at its best. Beyond that, it's even now part of our scientific community. Albert Einstein says, a person experiences life as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. Our task must be to free ourselves from this self-imposed prison and through compassion find the reality of oneness. Thank you, Albert, for making my point. Now, in Science of the Mind, Dr. Holmes follows this teaching, philosophy, and he says there's nothing in the universal order that denies the individual's good or self-expression, so long as self-expression does not contradict the general good, does not contradict goodness itself. There's nothing in the universe that denies us the right to be happy, if our happiness does not deny or interfere with the general good. The universe remains unlimited, though the whole world has suffered a sense of limitation. Now, as we become more aware of our oneness with everything else, as we become more aware of our divine nature and our interdependence, that greater awareness brings with it the realization that everything we do affects everything else. Our own thoughts, words, and actions touch everything else. Here's a great philosopher from late 1890s. Peace comes within the souls of men when they realize their oneness with the universe, when they realize it is really everywhere. It is within each one of us. And that's a quote from Black Elk, one of the most amazing minds, I think, of the late 1800s. Here's a quote, and I have to see who it's from. Oh, a Holmes reader on practical wisdom. Life is an eternal givingness, the offering of the cosmic self to the joy of its own fulfillment. You and I are part of this joy, and we find fulfillment only as this joy passes through us to others. Everything moves in circles. We short-circuit our own good when we refuse to pass it on. What are we refusing to pass on? What do you think Holmes meant when he said, we short-circuit our own good by refusing to pass it on? Pass what on? Well, it could mean material goods, finances, eggs. But it probably means much more. Passing on our joy, our love, our energy, the things that really make us who we are. passing on our energy affects everyone. We saw an example yesterday. We went to the basketball game, parked on the 4th floor of the parking garage. Elevator opens, 8 of us stepped on. Elevator didn't move. 2 people said, "This elevator doesn't work," and they jumped in. Immediately the doors closed and down we went. And I made a joke that people were laughing about, because we got in line behind these people, but I made this joke. I said, well, now we can tell who's got the negative energy. Because that elevator was, we stood there poking buttons. He said, "This elevator doesn't work." Off it went.
Wow.
Our energy affects everyone in ways we don't think about. But Holmes is telling us when we allow our joy of living, the love of life to pass through us, to express, only then can we find our own fulfillment. So doesn't it make sense to say, to think, to believe, I can't possibly make you happy while I'm unhappy myself? Doesn't that reveal something important about how we perform and behave in even our most important relationships? We must be true to ourselves first. Only then can we be truly honest with others. And everyone knows the old familiar Shakespeare quote that I heard from my high school wrestling coach over and over. To thine own self be true, and thou canst wrong no man. That's how he said it. I think it actually varies a word or two here and there. That's how my wrestling coach said it, so that's how I remember it. And it's so true. We can take that a step further and state that we must know who we are, what our desires are, what our beliefs are, so that we can honor those. But don't label it as a need to discover ourselves. What we need to do is remind ourselves of our oneness, our connection to the divine. We've never been separated. We can't be separated. That's the illusion of duality. Now, in Ethics for the New Millennium, is this: self and others can only really be understood in terms of relationship. We see that self-interest and others' interests are closely interrelated. Indeed, within this picture of dependently originated reality, we see that there is no self-interest completely unrelated to others' interest. Due to the fundamental interconnectedness which lies at the heart of reality, your interest is also my interest. From this it becomes clear, mathematical equation, that my interest and your interest are connected. In a deep sense, they converge. And again, that was a quote from Ethics for the New Millennium. When we realize that they or their interests are the same as my interests, because truly they're only the interests of the one, it becomes apparent that everything does move in circles. My desire to be happy and yours are exactly the same. Sometimes either through experiencing nature's beauty or meditating or journaling, or even just experiencing ourselves, we just intensely feel that calm, peace, at ease, knowing that all is right in our world. We're at the center of it. And in that right consciousness, we experience our oneness. Here's a quote from Sri Chinmoy, was an Indian teacher, philosopher, spiritual teacher, who died like 10 years ago. When you are right, everything around you is right. For the beautiful flow that is inside your heart has the capacity to spread its fragrance of oneness light all around you. I love that. When I saw that, I went, oh, that's going in. When you are right, everything is right. And spreads its fragrance of oneness light all around you. That's beautiful. Here's one from Buddha. He who understands the unity of life sees his own self in all beings, and all beings in his own self, and looks on everything with an impartial eye. A few weeks ago, someone said, oh, I like all the quotes you put in. Well, you asked for it. There's a lot of quotes. This one's from The Spiritual Universe and You, which I believe is Dr. Holmes. It doesn't say, but I think it is. Developing confidence in ourselves, in our ability to meet and handle all undesirable situations, requires that we must have confidence in something which is greater than we are. Then we will have spiritual self-reliance. When this is done, the lesser must always submit to the greater. Weakness will give way to strength. Despair will turn to hope. Hate will become love. Failure will become success. Sickness will dissolve into health. The action that takes place is not one of despotic or overruling harshness, but one that moves in harmony, love, beauty, warmth, and order, quietly transforming all that is unlike itself. Now here's one that Sharon has to help me with the pronunciation. Thich Nhat Hanh? Close enough.
Oh, you did a good job.
People normally cut reality into compartments, and so are unable to see the interdependence of all phenomena. To see one in all and all in one is to break through that great barrier which narrows one's perception of reality. Okay, one more quote from the Dalai Lama in our Book of the Month, Ethics for the New Millennium. The concept of dependent origination compels us to take the reality of cause and effect with utmost seriousness. By this I mean that particular causes lead to particular effects, and that certain actions lead to suffering while others lead to happiness. It is in everybody's interest to do what leads to happiness and avoid that which leads to suffering. And because, as we have seen, our interests are inextricably linked, we are compelled to accept ethics as the indispensable interface between my desire to be happy and yours. That's the Dalai Lama. Now, most of my life, I have not been one known to be an appreciation of poetry. Lately, that seems to be growing. Some of these things I thought were quite poetic, and I enjoyed them, but none that I enjoyed more than the poem I'm about to read you by Jalaluddin Rumi. say I am you. I am dust particles in sunlight. I am the round sun. To the bits of dust I say, stay. To the sun, keep moving. I am morning mist and the breathing of evening. I am wind in the top of a grove and surf on the cliff. Mast, rudder, helmsman, and keel. I am also the coral reef they founder on. I am a tree with a trained parrot in its branches, silence, thought, and voice. The musical air coming through a flute is a spark off a stone, a flickering in metal. Both candle and the moth crazy around it. Rose and nightingale lost in the fragrance. I am all orders of being, the circling galaxy, the evolutionary intelligence, the lift and the falling away. What is and what is not, you who know Jalaluddin, you are the one in all. Say who I am. Say I am you. Now, Rumi was a 13th century teacher, mystic, poet. But that work still exists. It perpetuates because it's beautiful, it's truth. Think about it. It was written in Persian. It's been translated. It's been edited, modified. But the message is still the same. The beauty, the wisdom. It's all part of our oneness. Despite our strongest delusions, there truly is no separation between us and our creative source. We all have this deep, deep connection to source, and through source to each other. When we say we're soul family, we still don't really conceptualize what that means. We think it tends to selectively apply to special people, their soul family, and it applies to many, if not most, or all of us in this room. But that's still part of the illusion. There is no duality. We are all one at the soul level. We are all soul family. So the interests of the one call us to consider the ethical and social implications of our words and our actions, to speak words and take actions that increase the good for all, to consider how our actions ripple throughout the universe, to ask ourselves, if God is showing up as me, through me, what is my deepest desire of how that should look? And that's for each one of us to decide. What is your deepest desire of how Spirit will show up through you, as you? The one thing I can say is I'm grateful Spirit shows up as you here now. In this, my tribe, my spiritual community. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
But I do have an affirmation. If it's comfortable for you, just relax, close your eyes, allow my words to be your words as I speak in the first person. I am one with all that is. I open up to this oneness. My thoughts, words, and actions are filled with harmony, love, beauty, warmth, and order. I touch the world with love and compassion, and I experience love and compassion in return. And so it is.
So it